Yo, PhillyPhil here, Freedom Unfiltered, episode 6, no bullshit. This is your weekly dose of raw, unfiltered me. This week we have the Patriot Pulse and the Bro Bash, real takes from a real American. Buckle up, episode 6 starts now. This week's Patriot Pulse, we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about Trump's peace plans for Russia and Ukraine, and we're going to talk about his meeting in the White House with New York City's new socialist mayor. Okay? Let's get off right into it, talking about Trump's new peace plan for Russia and Ukraine. Okay. Now, he just released a 28-point peace plan that just got major updates from Geneva talks with Ukrainian counterparts. Okay. And what it's doing is it's exposing Biden's $175 billion meat grinder as the grift that it always fucking was. Now, in this revised 20-point framework, down from the 28 points after Ukrainian pushback, it calls for an immediate ceasefire and Russia freezing its lines. Okay. However, it also calls for Russia keeping Crimea and parts of the Donbass, which roughly make up 20% of Ukraine today. Now, Ukraine will get some NATO security guarantees, but they will get no membership for at least 10 years. And there will be a $50 billion reconstruction fund currently set at a 70-30 Russian-Ukrainian split. Now, Ukraine's team has called it a workable framework. But Russian Defense Minister Sergei Lavrov has slammed the changes as fundamentally different and ignoring the Anchorage spirit. Now, this signals that Moscow won't bite without a permanent NATO ban for Ukraine. Some data behind it, there's been $175 billion sent in U.S. aid since 2022. That's $100 billion in lost weapons and 300,000 dead Ukrainians. Meanwhile, Russia's economy actually grew 3.6% despite heavy economic sanctions, and U.S. inflation spiked over 0.5% from energy costs alone. Now, Trump's pitch in all this is we end this war fast and there's no more blood for Zelensky's donors, okay? He met Putin and Zelensky via video last week, and Putin agreed to freeze the lines. Meanwhile, Zelensky, quote unquote, got security guarantees like Israel without NATO troops. However, this original point that Trump made was very Russian heavy, with Ukrainian troop caps, a complete NATO ban, and it just didn't work for Ukraine, apparently. Now, they've since added EU membership for Ukraine into it and raised the military limit to 800,000. And Zelensky said it's a basis for peace in his recent coalition speech. However, Putin fired missiles overnight, killing 7 in Ukraine. Now, Trump's plan will save $50 billion a year, and it'll end the madness. Zelensky's Hero Act will essentially be over, and he'll have to trade NATO dreams for survival. Russia's economy has gone up 3.6, while ours has stayed stagnant at 1.8%. The sanctions haven't necessarily worked the way we wanted them to, but Trump's energy dominance will fix that. It'll fix that with cheap gas for Americans and cheap gas for our allies and counterparts, essentially getting rid of Russia's demand. Lavrov's fundamentally different bitching, good. It just means that they're scared of a fair deal. Now, this is MAGA diplomacy at its finest. No nation building, no endless wars, and $175 billion back in our pockets, along with no longer 300,000 dead Ukrainians simply for corruption. Okay, the swamp hates it because it cuts their defense contract buddies' kickbacks, and Putin will blink. Okay, he blinked with the line freeze, but the NATO ban, that's his hill he's going to die on. A 10-year delay is just a hedge by Trump and is essentially genius. Now, Zelensky gave the framework a nod of approval because he's had enough. He can't sustain this any longer. What this will do for Trump and the Republicans is it'll give them a little bit of midterm gold. Okay, it'll give them the Trump ended the war talks. It'll give them the Trump ended the war headlines, and Trump fucking finally brought an end to the Democrats and fucking their war machine and their defense mongering buddies. Okay, there'll be no more $50 billion fucking Ukrainian welfare checks. It'll finally be America first for real. Speaking of America first, Trump just met with New York City's new socialist mayor, Zoran Mamdani. Okay, and I know I'm probably butchering his name, so I apologize for that. Now, just a week ago, Zoran Mamdani walked into the White House for a 45-minute courtesy call with President Trump. Now, from what reports suggest, it was the most awkward peace deal since the Korean DMZ. Okay. Now, Mandami, the 34-year-old socialist who just beat out Cuomo in the primary, flew in to discuss urban policy, but it was pure theater. Trump posted before the meeting that Zoran's a socialist and New York City needs help. Let's see if he can handle the big leagues. The meeting, it was closed doors, but leaks say it was tense as all hell. Now, what is reported to happen is that Mamdani pushed for $50 billion in federal affordability aid, which translates to free transit, rent freezes, government-owned and run grocery stores, and more migrant housing. Trump's counter was border security first. ICE raids in New York City, and no funds until you sanctuary cities start to comply. Mamdani walked out with a handshake photo op and zero concessions. And Trump posted afterwards, good talk with Zoran. New York City's a mess, but he's learning fast. America first means safe streets. It couldn't be more right, okay? And this meeting was another one of Trump's peace deals, so to speak. However, this time it wasn't with Putin or Zelensky, but a socialist mayor begging for cash. Mamdani thought he'd get handouts, but instead Trump gave him a reality check. New York City is $68 billion deficit. It's your problem until you secure your borders, Zoran, okay? Your DSA revolution just met Trump's wall, and the socialist dream just got fucking deported. You wanted freebies for migrants, and Trump gave you ICE raids instead. This is MAGA diplomacy. End of story. Your youthful energy was cute until you met Trump's deal making, okay? You walked in 45 minutes, you walked out with nothing but a tweet. New York City's migrant crisis, meanwhile, is worsening with over 1,200 arrests last week alone. And this sets the tone for Trump's second term. No more free lunch for blue cities. Mamdani's affordability pitch was rejected, and Trump's America first means borders first and handouts last. Mamdani versus Trump is the perfect cultural war snapshot. It's socialist mayor meets MAGA president. Zoran got schooled, and now New York City's going to feel the heat. That's the Patriot Pulse. The Bro Bash is next. On this week's Bro Bash, we're going to get into some UFC, into some NFL. We're going to break down the next set of title fights and what matchups we think make sense moving forward. We'll start with UFC, and we'll start in the flyweight division with Alejandra Pantoja versus Joshua Van. Now, this will take place at UFC 323 next month, and Joshua Van is a rising UFC star. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't faced an opponent as skilled as Pantoja, and while Van does have one-punch power and can shut the lights out on any opponent in any given night, these lights are going to prove to be a little too bright. Pantoja is going to retain his belt in the slugfest, and he will be the heavy favorite in this fight for a reason. In the bantamweight division, we have Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan. It'll also take place at UFC 323 next month and be the headlining main event. We've seen this one play out before, and there's no reason to believe it's going to play out any different this time around. In their first fight, Merab attempted a record 49 takedowns on Peter and landed over 200 strikes en route to a 50-45 shutout on all three judges' scorecards. He dominated Yan so bad in the first time around, I'm actually surprised that Dana White and the matchmakers actually made this a second time, okay? Merab will go down as the greatest bantamweight of all time, and he is the literal definition of a fucking machine. No one in the division can contain his relentless pressure, and he's dominated every opponent he's faced the last 2 years. Merab will retain his title in a landslide. There's nobody in the division that can contain him. Moving up a weight class, we'll go into the featherweights, and we'll talk about Alexander the Great Volkanovski, the current champ. He currently does not have a match scheduled, but it's clear that Evelev is the number one contender and the next opponent for Alexander the Great. Now, Movsar is 19-0 and has wins over Diego Lopes, Arnold Allen, and Aljamain Sterling. However, this will be the first test truly for Volk since his failed quest at champ status, okay? I know he fought Diego Lopes, but Diego Lopes isn't going to take him down and beat him up, okay? Evelev is a different type of animal. And in my opinion, Volk does turn the clock back and shows why his nickname is Alexander the Great. I think he dismantles Evelev and sets up another huge super fight for himself, allowing Merab to move up and take a swing at the Aussie. Speaking of moving up, Ilia Topuria, the new lightweight champion, is very clear that the next fight to make it lightweight is Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan. And trust me, I'm no fucking fan of Arman Tsarukyan. But to deny him the next title shot would just be diabolical at this point. Honestly, Topuria should be scared. He should be calling for other fighters. Tsarukyan is a fucking wrecking ball who takes you down and imposes his will. We all know Ilia has one-punch power, but does it matter if you're on your fucking back all fight? Ilia hasn't faced a wrestler like this at all. And if he's talking about continuing to move up and challenge Islam, the only way to get the UFC to truly buy into that is to dominate Arman Tsarukyan. That's the only way to make that fight happen. I think Ilia will find a way to land that devastating shot on Arman and shut his lights out and retain his crown, but this will be no walk in the park, and make no mistake about it, this will be the hardest fight of Ilia Topuria's career. Now, Islam Makhachev just dominated Jack Della Maddalena, and he is our newest champ. Got a lot of them recently. But he is the new welterweight champion. The big difference, or the big question is who will be Islam's first title defense at welterweight? My money's on Ian Gary, okay? Ian Gary did lose to Shavkat Rakhmonov, but Ian Gary's activity and his wins after that narrow loss deserve to be rewarded, while Shavkat just sat on the sidelines and just waited for a shot, okay? In that time span, Ian Gary beat Carlos Prates, who just scored a massive and devastating KO win over Leon Edwards and put himself in contention. Then Gary followed up that win by beating Bilal Muhammad in devastating fashion. Okay, it's clear Ian Gary is the number one contender and presents an insanely tough matchup for Islam. Gary is long, quick, and insanely skilled on his feet. But what might be more impressive is Gary's takedown defense. Bilal Muhammad could not get him to the ground, and Ian Gary landed shot after shot after shot. His length kept Bilal at bay, and it will do the same thing to Makhachev. The UFC needs to book this fight ASAP and watch everyone draw comparisons to Conor and Khabib. The only difference this time being is that the Irishman comes out on top. Speaking of being on top, the middleweight king Khamzat Chimaev, he's currently hurting on the shelf. But after his complete domination of Dricus du Plessis, the only thing left for the UFC to do at middleweight is to have a tournament. Chimaev is clearly the UFC boogeyman, and nobody has been able to test him truly since Gilbert Burns somehow went 3 rounds with him. He's dismantled UFC greats like Kamaru Usman, and he's destroyed modern-day champions like Dricus du Plessis and Robert Whittaker. There is no viable contender in the division for Chimaev, and what better way than a tournament to show who the real number one middleweight is. Khamzat's got some time on the bench. We have time to let it unfold. Dana, make it happen, okay? Chimaev is going to be the middleweight king for as long as he wants to be the middleweight king. Let's see who's actually good enough to fight him. Onto the light heavyweight division. Alex Pereira is our current champion, as we all know. He got his revenge over Ankalaev, and the UFC's most exciting fighter finally has his belt back. Now, who he knocks out next is up for debate. MMA purists will clamor for him to fight Carlos Ulberg next, and while I have to admit this fight will be fucking fireworks, I selfishly want him to fight John Jones next. John Jones is a fight that both fighters have called for, and would be the perfect fight for the White House card. Now, obviously, John Jones would take Pereira to the ground and fucking submit him immediately, but it would still be great entertainment, and it would be the perfect way to cap John Jones' career off. Pereira wouldn't have to lose his belt. Life could go on, okay? Realistically, Pereira fights Carlos Ulberg next, and we get a fucking banger. Ulberg has fucking heavy hands, but he's no match for Poatan. Pereira will put him to sleep and watch all those first round KO tickets fucking cash, baby. On to the fucking big boys, the heavyweights. There's really no need to waste our time guessing what the next matchup will be here for Tom Aspinall, okay? Clearly, it's Cyril Gane. Now, after that eye poke, I clearly think Aspinall will get it done, and the division will fucking finally move on for Gunn, who won't have another title shot for a very long time after losing to Aspinall. He lost to Jones. Let's just move on from this dude, please, okay? But the heavyweight division is dying for a star, okay? Aspinall is just not that guy and never will be that guy. What happened to the days when the big boys reigned fucking supreme, okay? Surely there's got to be some fucking big bone boy in Alabama or some fucking tatted up fucking hammer and fucking wine eye that just needs a little bit of training and guidance. Let's find the next heavyweight star and get the division where it fucking needs to be, okay? On to the NFL. Let's go over some of the games from this past week and some that are coming up. The fucking Indianapolis Colts are 8-3. They're coming off a tough loss to Mahomes and the Chiefs, but I have to fucking say they finally earned my fucking respect. While the Colts still have Danny Dimes at quarterback, and in my opinion, you can never be a real contender without a top 10 quarterback, their defense is fucking legit. And they can run the ball on fucking anybody at any given point in time, okay? It's clearly going to be up to Daniel Jones and the coaching staff to see how far this team goes. They have a great matchup this week with division rivals in Houston, and they should absolutely fucking roll them. Indy -4 is an absolute fucking lock. The San Francisco 49ers moved to 8-4 on the season despite a fucking god-awful performance from Brock Purdy, okay? When will Kyle Shanahan wake the fuck up and give the keys to Mac Truck Jones, okay? The numbers don't lie, all right? The eye test doesn't lie. Mac Jones should be QB1 in San Francisco. Brock Purdy has half the pass attempts on the season and has more fucking interceptions than Mac Jones, okay? He's careless with the fucking football. He tries to fit the ball into windows that only Mahomes can get him into. If the Patriots had been blinded this way by Bledsoe's contract, the way Shanahan and Lynch are blinded by Purdy's contract, then Brady would have never got a chance to play 25 years ago, and it would have been a colossal mistake, and nobody would probably even know fucking Bill Belichick's name at this point in time, okay? However, Kyle Shanahan clearly doesn't remember how that played out, and he's about to make a terrible fucking mistake. I'm not saying Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady because we all know he's not, but Mac Jones should be QB1 in San Francisco. Purdy will get a chance to rebound against a fucking stout Cleveland defense this week, but CMC and the boys will continue rolling and make life difficult for Shadur. CMC leads the team in both rushing and receiving and should have another monster game against the Brownies, the team NFL's resident fucking dumpster fire. Hammer the 49ers -5 and thank me later. The Buffalo Bills. You motherfuckers should be ashamed of yourselves, okay? You have losses this year to the Patriots, Falcons, Dolphins, and Texans. Now, the loss to the Patriots is a fucking legit one. I have nothing to say about that, okay? But you have been beaten down by the Dolphins and Texans in 2 of the last 3 weeks. While every other contender in the AFC has their foot on the gas, the fucking Bills have fucking forgot to take the fucking e-brake off, okay? While Bills fans are ready to anoint Josh Allen as the second coming of Tom Brady himself, the truth is he's not playing up to expectations, okay? And the fault just isn't his own either. Allen is having career best in terms of completion percentage, but he also has 3 more interceptions this year than he had all of 2024. And he's already been sacked double the amount of times this year than he was in all of 2024 and is on pace to be sacked the most times of his entire career. Meanwhile, the defense isn't helping him out either. The defense has given up the 3rd most rushing yards in the NFL, and the entire fucking team needs to wake the fuck up, okay? The Buffalo Bills are in fucking turmoil right now. They have a favorable schedule, though, okay? They end the season with games against the Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Eagles, and Jets, okay? They could easily win 4 of those games. Patriots and Eagles are going to be tough, but the Bills could easily run the table. They have it in them. That's a wrap for the Bro Bash in this week's episode. Y'all know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, smash the like, tell all your friends, moms, and aunties. Much love, y'all. Philly out.